Hello and welcome. Today the question we are asking is, what does it cost to be Ghanaian? Folks, we've all been talking about a national ID system because we know it will definitely automatically reduce corruption, make identification much easier, indeed know where citizens are, what they are doing, and the state can probably pursue them to increase the so-called revenue that we talk about. But as of last year, we had a data of about 15 million at a cost of about 21 million Ghana cedis. But we are told that that is not quite right. So now we need $115 million, and then we capture everybody, because this time we get all the 10 fingers which meet international standards. But the ID cards are going to be used in Ghana. Do we care whether Israel approves of it or whether Germany approves of it? Can we update what we already have in the system? Do we really need to scrap everything and get a fresh one? I don't know. But I've got experts in the house who will explain to us. My name is Nana Sakwao, and this is PM Express. Don't move. And thank you very much for staying. What does it cost to be Ghanaian? And I have the boys from NIA in the house to come and explain to us. To my immediate left is Osei Kwame Griffiths, who's the head of technology. Osei, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then I have Joseph Iroko, who's head of admin and legal compliance. You're welcome. And then joining us on the phone will be Franklin Kujo, executive director of Imani. He's also got his views on the issue. But I'll start with Kwame, you, because you are with technology. We already have a system that has captured 15 million data. And now we're going for another one that would capture probably more data. What do we do? Scrap the 15 million and start afresh, build upon it? What are we doing?
We are not going to scrap the one that has captured 15 million. First of all, let me say that we have captured 15 million records, but we have only inserted 9.2 million into the database. And out of the 9.2, we've sent it through the system to the point where we have 4.5 that are already data that is, of a good quality that we can issue ID cards for. And we are not going to be scrapping the old system, as it is, it's being said around. We actually are going to use the data that we collected are going to be used because they have pins, which are actually the identity of the individuals, on some of them. And also, different sections of the systems are going to be used. We have the card production system, which is a huge portion of the system that is going to be plugged into a new system that is going to be developed. And, so we have that card production system that is going to be used. We are going to use the data also. And the ID cards, we have some cards in stock. And those cards, we are going to turn into smart cards. We are going to mail on top of the cards and then plant a chip on it so that it can be used. So it's not the entire system that is going to be scraped.
What's wrong with the system we have now?
Well, first of all, let me say the system was designed somewhere in 2005, 2006. It was eventually put together in 2007, late 2008. Enrollment systems were developed. And then data capturing started in 2008. And if you look at first of all, the technology life cycle, system that has been in operation for that long.
That long as in 2003?
2007 is when it was finally put together. And then data capturing started in 2008. So, and you would realize that its system, especially with the enrollment machines, we almost lost all of them in the field. And if you would remember, when we were in the field, you realize that there were a lot of, media, media technical challenges that were reported through the media. And these are all due to the fact that the machines are very old. The power systems that, you know, actually feeds power into the enrollment systems were all down. We had to more or less buy new power systems. We've changed a lot of parts, changed some of the parts, used some of the machines, cannibalized some to maintain them. Out of our 1,500 machines that we had to enrollment machines, by the end of the exercise, we had just about 600 to 700 left. And even those, there were serious issues with them. You know. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is that the data needs of some institutions, and you would recall that recently government has emphasized the need to have a central biometric database that will serve all institutions that need some forms of identification. And for this to be realized, the NIA has to be strengthened to pick data that is needed by some of these institutions, which, you know, during the design of the initial system were not picked. So this would have to be done. And also, most of these institutions are already picking 10 digits, 10 fingerprints, which is, you know, which is the current trend. And more so in our country where we have issues with quality of fingerprints, which was very, you know, prominent in the last elections that we had. You realize that to pick all digits is very important, you know, if you want to do any meaningful identification. So we are this time picking all 10 fingerprints. Not only are we doing that, we are also bringing on board new biometric modalities. And the one that we have selected is iris. Iris is very effective in verification. And it's been used. Yes. It's very effective in verification because you hardly destroy your iris. You know, unless you destroy your eye, your iris is intact. And it's very rich in biometric, you know, features that distinguishes individuals. So we are also using that so that we can hit close to 100% of verification that can be used by any institution that wants to use it. So these are some of the things that informed the need to actually have a modern system, you know, that will meet international standards, a world-class, you know, identification management system, you know, so that, you know, the nation can reap the benefits of that.
This new system, who's going to keep the data? You know, if a bank needs to use the data, I mean, who keeps it?
The NIA keeps the data. The data will reside on the 4th floor of the national data.
Joseph is legal, isn't it?
Yes.
I think this is more legal. So who controls this data?
It has always been that of the NIA. We have always controlled it. We have never ceded that obligation to any other person at all. So it's always been our obligation, which we strictly maintain.
And I don't know if this is legal or technical, but from what age is these new machines, from what age are we capturing? Still 18 and above, or are we going lower?
No, in our law, the law requires us to register a person from age 6 and above. So it's not from 18, from age 6 and above. So that is the requirement of the law. In fact, because of our collaboration with best enders, we know how important it is for us to go out of the best enders because we need their information to be able to update our records. We are trying to go even below 6 to from age 0. Once you are born, your details are captured at birth as in other countries. A number is assigned to you. When you get to age 6 where your biometrics are developed, then they can assign your personal ID number to you. And from there you can begin to use the number throughout your entire life. But just to come to add a bit of what my colleague said, one other reason why we're also trying to upgrade is that currently our system is what we call central issuance. What does that mean? We go to the field, we go pick biometric data, we come back to the headquarters, go through quality assurance process or deduplication as we call it. Then we take these cards back to the field to distribute. Now, in Gitagba, I am told that when the site started, we spent about 4 million Ghana cedis just going for the records. We come back to the field, from the field to the office, we go through the process, and we ship these cards back to the field. It costs twice as much the registration phase to get these cards back. And when we go, because of the delay due mainly to funding challenges, we don't get the people. They've moved on, they've gone away, and all that. Is it a surprise therefore for SNIT or NHIA to be doing instant issuance? Because we are facing similar problems. And we are supposed to be the mandate database for the country. If those who are to feed on our system are going 10 fingers, are doing instant, and you are still limited to the 4 fingers and to the central issuance, how then do we effectively play our role as a mother database? Those are some of the considerations that we took on board for us to be able to upgrade so we can play our statutory function more effectively.
Let's bring technical in here. I mean, was there any way we could have upgraded our system, or we need to scrap it and get a new system?
Well, we first of all, you are talking about servers and processors that existed, that were top of the line in 2007, 2008. I mean, between that time and now, there's so many things that have happened that would make it more efficient to have, in terms of the servers and processors, new servers and processors. Take for example, a laptop that you probably would have bought in 2007, and how relevant or effective would that laptop be today, And so you see, you realize that it becomes more expensive to maintain the servers and processors. That aspect, yes, we have to change it. We have to change them. But most of the major components of the system we are using. The most expensive part is the card production subsystem, which is made up of the data card machines. And those we are going to still use. We are upgrading those machines, actually. So it's an upgrade. We are upgrading those machines, but where some of the components are, just won't meet, the needs of, recent time, we will need to change those components. But data card machines, those days, were actually configured to do 2D barcode. We are putting smart card encoders on them, so that it can personalize a chip. So, I mean, those are upgrades. So most of the stuff we are doing upgrades. With the enrollment machines, even the laptops that are on them now, when you switch them on and you want to use them, it takes forever, So the enrollment machines are going to be new. And why will they need to be new? Because there are new modalities that we are bringing on board. That makes it necessary to do so. So if you don't change your enrollment machines, it will cost more to maintain them down. Some of these machines, IBM and what have you, have even stopped supporting them, and it's very expensive to get parts to maintain them. So the major parts of the systems, yes, we are keeping, but servers, processors, and those kinds, they are faster. Virtual machines are on board now. So many things that would allow us to do a more effective and efficient way.
Let's bring Joseph in here. Joseph is legal. Joseph, we're looking at compliance, and we're talking about international and compliance. But even the Ghanaian passport, travels to about 4 or 5 countries in this world without a visa. The rest, you have to go through so much scrutiny. So why are we paying so much money for an ID card that is internationally compliant, but you can't even go to that country anyway if you don't have a visa? So, I mean, what's the justification?
I think the upgrade is not really because we want, as it were, to use these cards outside. Even there are internal circumstances, we need to upgrade. I've mentioned that there are certain standards that we need to meet as an authority. I've spoken about the need for us to be able to play our role well as the mandate database. If our stakeholders, who again are supposed to feed on us, are using standards that are, if you like, higher than what the mandate database is using, then there's a problem. How then do we play our role effectively as an authority? It is again, we need to do that so that there will be no excuse for some of these stakeholders to go their way and say, because we are not ready, they are going ahead of us anyway. NIA is doing 10 fingerprints and they're going instant. SNIT is doing the same thing. But these are institutions that are on our board, and by the law, they're supposed to be getting information from our register. So if we want to play our role very well as an authority, We must as well play very well and make sure that our standards...
So if the other institutions
Yes.
are doing it,
Yes.
why don't you also go and buy a machine to do it? Because they are doing it. They are it's called the AFIS machines, or what's it
Yes,
called?
but
Yeah.
that is our function to perform. The argument is that we are not ready. We have never been ready. Therefore, they are going ahead. How do you stop that argument? How do you stop even that process from continuing? We need to be able to ensure that our system is compliant. Even talking about international standards, we just have no other option but to be internationally compliant, because we are going to be integrating into the global system. And that means that we need to be able to meet the global trends. So we cannot even do away with the issue of international compliance. It's very, very important for us. We need to be...
If I may also come in, if I may also chip in with your question of why others are going, if others are doing, why are we? I think that, first of all, let me make this statement. A modern, very rigorous identity management system that houses the reference population database for a nation is fundamental to national development and to national security. It's very important. Now, the way we have gone about
the first thing my viewers will want is, since when did Ghana notice that? Because we've been starting this thing since 1973.
Yes.
Trying to register Ghanaians since 1973. The Togolese, all the French Francophone countries have mastered it. So what is it that they've done that we can't seem to get it right since 73 till today? So you give us a bill of $150 million that this is it, I'm going to register you. The average Ghanaian will want to find out why.
If I may come in. But how we have done it, first of all, I think it is better late than never, if I may put it that way. And I also, being in the field of identity management and biometric, would like to state that if a government is in place, and no matter how scarce the resources are, if there's so much scarcity of resource, one fundamental thing that is important and has to be done is to build a credible database, and an identity management system. Anything short of that will be just like, shooting a moving target in the dark.
Let me acknowledge Franklin Kujo. Let me bring Franklin in here. Franklin.
Yes, please.
Well, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, and welcome to the show. Well, it's very important. Any government, any nation that's worth its salt has to sort of keep a database of the people living in it, and therefore, that's why the new registration system is coming in. What do you say to that?
Well, ordinarily, yes. Why not? Just as we have national population consensus, we should be able to know the number of people in the country and critically identify people as well. I think that we have missed a very critical part of this discussion. Not just the discussion, but indeed what I call policy logicality, the incoherence and policy. Because clearly speaking, you can never have an identity system which does not even trace anything to do with your childhood. So the birth and deaths registry, all those important data that ought to be part and parcel of an ID system is lost. If you even talk about social security, which for me, by the way, after the EC, seems to be the second most important identity system that we should be looking at working with in order to have a unified system, rather than have all these desperate attempts at trying to create multiple forms of IDs. So, yes, the discussion and the arguments can never be about whether we need an ID system or not. It is agreed. It is precisely the methods and the schemes that are adopted in order to achieve that which people are questioning. Nobody is against an identity system at all. I don't think that is what the debate is about. Mm-hmm. The debate is about holding people to account. I think that the NIA, in its former life, not too long ago, had wasted opportunity, wasted millions of taxpayer money with the same crop of people who were parading themselves as technology specialists. It appears they are the only people who know how to collect data and manage identities in this town. And they have no record to show for doing anything. They wanted to collect over how many thousands of foreigners, made a lot of noise about why they should pay, wasted taxpayer money, running adverts.
Frankly,
how many did they get?
The 15 million data. 15 million.
Excuse me. How many did they get? They got 50,000 out of that number that they were thinking for. In any case, the larger question really is, which they haven't explained yet to us, how come that an identity system, an identity collection exercise was done in this town? 7 regions were covered. They waited for a long time. I know they'll say it's a resource issue. It is not, because we do know the issues that are played out at the NIA. And then just as when they had to cover the northern regions, that's when they started cooking up the scams. We met the board a little over a year and a half ago. And I can tell you for a fact, including the proponents of the margins group, the board itself, they couldn't explain, they couldn't justify why we needed this. And even at the time, we're talking smaller sums. Apparently now the sums have gone to 115. I think the critical question we should be asking ourselves is this. Look, why are we not proposing a unified system? The EC data probably is the most important one to start with, because I think they have the most credible data. The second probably would be social security. And if they can synchronize that, I think it is prudent for anybody who wants to use taxpayer money after not being able to account for the first ones they had, should be interested in a unified system, because the president has been speaking about a unified system. Nana, you know how much we would have saved if we had a unified system of identity during the last election? We would have saved about $250 million. That's what we would have saved, and pulled out 16,000 schools under trees into proper structures. This whole idea as if they are doing us some good by going to some China people to go and collect money, and they are saying it's a PPP thing. This whole thing is a charade. It is true that the law says you can sole source. But if all there is about procurement is sole sourcing, we might as well scrap the other regulations as well. Why? A company started something, it failed woefully, and it is only in this town that we glorify such things, and they are continuing the mess and the lie. None of them, absolutely none, apart from the important point they are making, that we need an ID system. Nothing else they say makes sense to anybody at all. Okay, anybody who hears this thing just feels that this is just too much.
Hold on, Frank, because they're here, and I'm sure I'll get legal to respond to that.
Well, I don't know where to start from. I mean, from what he said, maybe if you just close down NIA, then we all go home. For Christ's sake,
NIA should be shut down.
For Christ's sake, he talks about a unified system. And I think we can do without all these description, hookups. And I mean, it's not necessary. We are trying to discuss. I mean, look at that.
Okay, frankly, hold on for me, please.
I mean, with respect. We are not small boys here.
Let me say this. If I may
let me finish. I mean, you come on air and you throw up such words just because you want to make an argument. We have the facts at your disposal. You are making an argument based on emotions, based on speculations. I mean, we can't continue to have this kind of behavior around here. You talk about us cooking up the system. Well, I don't know what he means by that. He says we should have a unified system. But for Christ's sake, the only body in town to do that is the NIA. It should go with our law. Our law is very clear on that. I think he needs some education on that. He says he comes to us and we couldn't explain things to him. I was at that meeting. We explained. If you don't believe us, doesn't mean that we didn't explain anything to you. I mean, this is not fair. Secondly, talk about a unified system.
Okay, if you explain to my viewers, when you go to the northern region, what were the challenges?
I would have wished he was very clear. See, he threw up a lot of allegations without even being specific. So it's difficult for us to even know how we can even respond to his question.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to come in on, make, the comments that he made. First of all, I'd like to say I agree with him on one thing. We need a unified system. We need a centralized database, in an institution that has the mandate to collect biometrics and manage identity systems in Ghana. Now, when you do that, and you have that database at a central location, then anybody else who needs identity of an individual before he can serve that person would use that identity management system that you have built to serve that person. And this is the way to, the best way to go about things.
Sure.
This is the reason why government has said that we should harmonize all these biometric systems that are all over the place. And NIA should take up its mandate, as the law dictates, to create this database that will serve all these other institutions. So I agree with him on that. Now, to be able to do that, you need to, first of all, do a few things that were not done when the system was designed. The system was designed with some issues of some data needs of some of these institutions that would make it easy for them to use the database. I'll give you one example. If you look at even the database that we have now, which was designed in 2006, 2007, thereabout, even contact information is not picked. So if I want to reach you now, and I go into the database, I have your records, and I have some issue that I need to contact you about.
That's a fundamental mistake.
Yes, it is a fundamental mistake, but it has been made. Yes. Now, what we are trying to do now, because these are the things that have been excuses that institutions have made, and they have procured their own identity management system, in addition to their mandate, what they are supposed to be doing for Ghanaians. So what government is saying now is that now there's been, from the Office of the President, a moratorium on the procurement of AFISs all around the world. We need only one. We have 9. Government says no. That should not happen. So nobody should procure any more AFISs. That instruction has been given. The NIA is to redesign its system, and in that redesign, should take note of the data needs of some of these institutions. We are in talks with most of the institutions. We are in talks with Passport Office. We are in talks with the financial institutions, Controller, Accountant General. In fact, we have a very strong collaboration with Bets and Debts, because without Bets and Debts, what will happen is that you have a database that will keep building up, because you have no way of purging it out of people who have departed from us. And when you have those people residing in your database, people will assume those identities and use them. So we are in talks with Bets and Debts. And what we have done now is to put together a design that will have all these, issues that were not, envisaged in the past. So going forward, we will have one database that will have, biometric, the biometric database and alphanumeric of individuals. And in the biometric, one big error that we are also making as a nation is that most of these AFISs that are around are all based on fingerprints. Fingerprints is a typical European solution. It will be a problem in our area in Africa. Why will that be so? Because where you have farmers who are using cutlasses to weed and what have you, and they destroy their ridges very easily. And one of the things that is required before you can even use the biometric trait to, as an effective biometric modality on the population is that it has to be universal. You should have at least 95% of your population having it in good quality. That test alone, fingerprint, will fail. So in our design, we are talking about iris. Iris is very good in positive identification. Positive identification is when the person wants to be identified, even though it is very poor in a case where you are trying to, catch somebody who is trying to, hide. It is very, it's not very effective.
Just close his eyes and
yes, because then there are medications that they can use to dilate their eyes, and then, you destroy their iris structure, and even when they get excessive alcohol, it destroys their iris structure. So all these things we have put together, and we have chosen the modalities that will effectively solve the verification problem that we have in the country. And in this country, especially when you are going up north because of the weather, you would have issues with fingerprint verification. So all these things have been put together. Now, there's a talk that some other institutions should have done it. EC is serving a subset of the population. EC is serving those who are 18 years and above. You know, so where do you start? The most sensible thing to do is to have an institution like NIA, like it was established, you know, it was meant to do, established and build a strong database that will serve all these institutions. So I believe that it is in the right direction that the NIA has, you know, is working on getting into that level of, you know, identity management system that will serve all these institutions.
I'll take a short break and then I'll come back, and I just want to find out about this birth and death, because I know there are people who live here with no birth certificate until they have to travel or find a passport before they get a birth certificate. So how is this going to work? Stay tuned, we're coming back. What does it cost to be Ghanaian? And that's what we're discussing, and it's all about getting one centralized database where we are all in there, our ages, our sex, occupation, where we live, probably our telephone number, if you have a girlfriend or not, whatever, it is all captured in there. So every department you go in can just call these people and say, look, Nana Nsankwa is here to get a loan. Is he married? Is he responsible? Something of that sort. However, you know, we have a country where there are people, lots of them, who don't have birth certificates. I mean, they're just there. Some probably live until without a birth certificate. How do they get on your thing? Because, you know, maybe the death, people can take people out. You know, how are you managing that?
Okay, one of the things that we have also, you know, we have taken on board is the fact that you cannot have effective national database if you don't strengthen birth and death. Now, births and deaths, they are doing about 60+% in birth registration and about 20+% in death registration. I think that is very poor. And it is not because they don't have, you know, they can't do it, but because they are not, you know, well resourced. So one of the things that we are looking at is to, you know, very, you know, effective collaboration with births and deaths, whereby and those are one of the components of the Chinese facility, you know, that we are looking at in the Chinese facility, you know, to have births and deaths, assist them in pushing up the birth and death, you know, percentage registration. And we are looking at a case where we have what we call the village notebook, which they themselves have done some pilot on, where within the rural areas, they would have a notebook there that would be recorded maybe in a palace or with some opinion leaders, and that information can be, you know, fed to their central system or the district headquarters and what have you. Now, one other thing also that we are looking at is, you know, to have some co-location arrangement done with births and deaths, so that where they are effective, we join hands with them. And in the Chinese facility, we are also looking at, you know, taking the technology to the people. Because if you have technology that exists in Accra, and my grandmother in a village wants to update his records or wants to have a replacement card, or somebody in the village turns the age that he or she should be given an ID card, and the person has to come to Accra, that would be a challenge. So one of the things we are doing is we are going to have some offices, you know, across the country where we can have join hands with births and deaths in some of these offices. So, you know, have in some cases joint enrollment stations and what have you, that will allow us to work effectively together, pull up the numbers of births and deaths, because that's the only way you can have an effective identity management system.
Joseph, will you have to buy the cards? Or?
Which cards?
This Ghana card thing.
Well, I mean, currently government policy is that they'll be issued out for free in the first instance. That's the policy. But I think I need to come back to correct certain impressions again from the money guy, because it's very important that I know people hold him as an expert, and whatever he says, people some believe it as a gospel truth. But there is an obvious untruth in what he says. For instance, he talks about SNIT being, EC and SNIT having the largest, if you like, biometric database. As my brother said, if you don't have to vote, you don't need a voter's card? Do you?
No.
It's not compulsory. If you're not a driver, you don't need a driver license. You don't want to travel, you don't need a passport, and so on and so forth. But this is the only card that by law every person must have. The others are sector specific. And then all these issues that he mentions, needs, and they are all represented on our board. The essence of it is that they will be on our board, and the National ID Register, which is established by law, their input will be taken on board, so you can have a unified system. So the law provides for that structure. It's not being done. The question is, because it's not being done, you just sit down and watch. At a point in time, you must do something about it. We can't say because it's not happening, therefore we should just sit down and watch. So really, the issue of the unified system is what we are trying to do as our law expects us to do. Now, the foreigner registration process, he described them as a scam. I mean, that's a very serious and unfortunate statement. This is the process by which the films registration came into being. The government policy of public-private partnership, this is the guideline that was issued in 2011. And we followed every procedure in here to get the contract done. Unless he's saying that the procedures are not useful, or those who are the members of the approval committee, AG's department, Minister of Finance, NDPC, Ministry of Trade and Industry, PPA and all that, they just sat down and contrived to short-serve Ghanaians. Is that how he's saying? Then fine. But I'm saying that we follow the procedure in arriving at the foreigner registration exercise. He talks about us registering just about 50,000. That is true. But there are challenges even in there. There are certain obligations on us as a public entity to perform. For instance, GIS are part of our...
Hold on, which is the 50,000, which is the 15 million?
Precisely. You know, frankly, I'm coming to that. Frankly spoke about, confused or added so many things together, and we need to clarify. He was talking about the foreigner registration that we did.
Okay, foreigner registration.
That we did. And when the process was approved, it went through this process. It was, the contract was vetted by the Attorney Department, sent to Finance. All the people that are supposed to vet and conduct due diligence, they went through this. And our lawyers for this project was AB and David Law. They are an authority for PPP. In fact, they are the ones currently transforming this policy
so what went wrong?
into a statute. Nothing has gone wrong. It has worked very well. Foreigners are getting their card instantly.
But you only registered 50,000?
Yes, I'm coming to that. That is, as again, there were certain obligations divided between the private partner and the public partner. NI as a public entity was supposed to guarantee that we shall get this number of foreigners registered at a particular time through the initiative of the GIS. We have got data from GIS. When it came to getting the numbers, we realized that there had been difficulty even trying to get this number that we thought existed. Not because they don't exist, but they are obviously resource constraints in terms of identifying them. So the system we now have got the number that we wanted, but it has by and large worked. The system is issuing instant issuance, instant card to foreign nationals, and based on the success of that, the board felt that we need to expand this instant issuance to Ghanaians, so we can take care of the distribution challenge that I mentioned earlier on. Because once you come and get your card, you don't have to go back, you just take it and you go away. That's for the, so in short, what I'm saying is that for the foreign national registration exercise, we went through the policy. The policy is here, so there cannot be a question of it being a scam. Now, you also talk about the 150 million Chinese facility. For Christ's sake, this facility is not for issuing of ID cards. As my Kwame has already spoken about it. We are going to be building regional offices. We're going to have a national presence. We have mobile registration vans. We are going to be establishing a biometric training institute, the first in Africa, to train biometric experts. You can imagine the potential revenue that will come from there. We are going to be buying e-kiosks. We are going to be supporting best enders to be able to come along with us so that we can, as soon as we can, upgrade them, so they can capture best enders as and when they occur. So the PPP project, I must emphasize, is for the expansion of the instant issuance and getting cards for Ghanaians. But the 150 million Chinese facility is not for registration. It's for us to develop our identification infrastructure, as we have already mentioned. So we need to have that distinction clearly made so that we don't confuse the two facilities.
Franklin?
Yes.
Yes, Nana. A number of corrections. First of all, I never said that we should use the EC as a basis per se. What I meant was essentially that The IC has been collecting data, and even if for the ages of 18 and above, it could be a useful entity. You see, we have always had issues even with the data itself. The question we are asking the NIA, you see, all these lectures are very important. I agree. Nobody is disputing that the NIA should not be the entity collecting real identity. The point is the methods. They talk about 160 million to erect edifices in regions. That's a complete waste of people's resources. Look, you only need a card. I mean, what is it on the card? What is it about the card that is just so special that this card cannot be done and in such a manner that it will be distributed? Even the ones they did already, it's enough. Look, this is a system, this is a region that is growing, transforming. Now we have ECOWAS passports. There are multiple forms of identity. There's just a lot of dynamism in that space. The system, and I've spoken to other experts as well, Hesi, and even far more, globally relevant authorities. And they've said that, look, the system we are going for is not only restrictive, it is a waste of resources because it can't even integrate into the future. I think these things have to be said. And I keep asking the question.
Franklin, this thing is looking at your iris. I don't think it doesn't get more futuristic than that, but I get the expert to come in. Franklin, hold on. Yeah.
Oh, but hang on. Let me finish. Nana,
yes.
Nana, please. don't be baffled with those things. I mean, iris is just one of those simplistic. Many places is done in a way. You see, let's not confuse the fact that technologies are being used to make it look as if this is a real project. I'm just suggesting that, first of all, the same company that we dealt with in its former life wasted millions of money, procured cards, and you can't tell me that fingerprints are not good. So all of a sudden, you want to go for iris.
Okay,
when you get to the border, don't they collect both fingerprints and iris as well?
Let me bring him in here because I'm running out of time. So let me bring him in here. Kwame.
First of all, let me say that restriction, yes. The system is, the old system that we have is, it's more or less a closed system. Now we are going on an open platform that would allow, for example, if you look at some of the challenges that the e-switch card has had, because the system is closed. I mean, so that is one of the things that is informing the new design. So we have taken care of that. So I want to assure Franklin that we have taken care of the fact that we would not have restrictions. I never said fingerprint is not good. I say it's not adequate. It's not adequate. Fingerprint is very good in the sense that it is when you have, because there are two types of AFISs that you can have, the civil one and the criminal one. And when you look at the criminal AFIS system, when you pick latent prints from the crime scene, you can match it against the criminal AFIS, but you also match it against the civil AFIS. And most of the time, from experience, you have more hits in the civil AFIS than you have in the criminal AFIS, because the civil AFIS has everybody's fingerprint in there, whereas the criminal AFIS is just a subset of people whose fingerprints have been captured because they were involved in some crime, criminal activity. So I want to assure Franklin that we have enough experts to look at this. And also, let me also say this, that the area of identity management and biometric is a very specialized area. So it's very easy for you to confuse information technology and, for somebody who has information technology expertise, does not necessarily have knowledge and expertise in the area of biometrics and identity management. It's very easy to speak as though you are an expert when in fact you are very ignorant in the technology. So let me make that point very clear. So we have taken on board all these things. We have looked at how verification was an issue during the election. Some of us spoke that it is going to be an issue, and indeed it was an issue. We spoke that it would be an issue. Indeed, it was an issue. So all these things have been taken on board, and now we have a design that will solve most of all these problems. So I want to assure him that if he wants a non-restrictive system That is not a closed system. That is based on international standards. That is interoperable. You can plug anything in. You know, we have that. You know, and we have also taken care of, you know, the security aspect of it to make sure it's top notch. So I want to assure.
I know you have special time.
Yes, I'm actually. They'll cut me off in the next minute, but I'll try and see if we can come back and continue this, because I can feel a part two in this thing, because there should be more education done. Yeah, more education. I also say thank you to Joseph and Kwame. Thank you to Franklin for joining us, and thank you for staying tuned. And I hope by now you've gotten an idea. It's a whole biometric institution and not just a card. And I'm reminding you, on Thursday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Joy FM, that's my opinion. And guess what? My show is so sensitive that I'm unable to tell you the title, because I don't know what will happen between now and then. So just tune in and listen between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. That's my opinion. I'm going to do the most sensitive show ever done on radio. Don't miss it. And thank you very much to do it all over again.